Every spring, millions of gardeners kneel in the dirt and start over. They till, they amend, they transplant, they water twice a day. By September, they have a few bushels of tomatoes, some squash, maybe a decent pepper harvest. Then frost comes, and the whole thing dies. Next year, they do it again. That is the annual gardening treadmill, and most people never step off it because nobody told them there was another option. Now imagine a different scenario. You walk outside in July and pick 300 pounds of fruit off a tree you planted 8 years ago. You did not spray it. You did not fertilize it. You barely pruned it. It just produced the way it has every summer since it hit maturity, and the way it will keep producing for the next 50 to 300 years. These trees exist. They are not exotic or experimental. Most of them are native to North America, and a few have been feeding civilizations for thousands of years. The reason you do not hear about them at the garden center is simple. Annual sale every spring, but a tree is a one-time purchase. The nursery industry has no incentive to push the plants that replace themselves. Today, I am giving you 7 fruit and nut trees that will feed you for decades with almost no work. If you've been looking for the real backbone of a food-producing landscape, this is it. Number 1. Mulberry, the tree most cities tried to ban because it produces too much food. A mature mulberry tree drops over 600 pounds of fruit per year. Read that number again. 600 pounds. That is not a typo, and it is not a best-case greenhouse scenario. That is a standard yield from a healthy tree over 20 years old, growing in ordinary soil with no irrigation. The fruit tastes like a blackberry crossed with a grape, and the harvest window stretches 6 to 8 weeks in most climates. Mulberries are hardy from zones 4 through 9. They tolerate poor soil, drought, and neglect, and they start bearing fruit within 2 to 3 years of planting. The black mulberry, Morus nigra, can live over 500 years. A single tree planted today could be feeding your descendants in the 26th century. So why does almost nobody grow them on purpose? Because the fruit is soft, stains everything it touches, and cannot survive a truck ride to a grocery store. The commercial supply chain has zero use for mulberries. That is exactly why they are perfect for you. No market competition, no pest pressure worth mentioning, and a yield curve that makes apple trees look like a hobby. Number 2. Chestnut, the grain that grows on a tree. Before the blight wiped out the American chestnut in the early 1900s, entire Appalachian communities survived on this one species. They called chestnut trees bread trees, and for good reason. A pound of dried chestnuts delivers over 1,600 calories. That is nearly identical to a pound of corn. But unlike corn, a chestnut orchard does not need annual planting, tilling, fertilizer programs, or combine harvesters. You plant the trees, you wait 7 to 10 years, and then the ground covers itself in food every October for the rest of your life. Mature plantings yield between 1,000 and 3,000 pounds per acre per year. The trees live 200 to 500 years depending on species. Chinese and Chinese-American hybrid chestnuts are blight-resistant and available right now from specialty nurseries. If you have ever thought about calorie self-sufficiency, this is the tree that changes the math. 1 acre of chestnuts can produce close to 8 million calories annually. No annual crop gives you that return for that little recurring labor. The chestnut is not a snack tree. It is a staple crop disguised as a shade tree. Number 3. American persimmon, the bomb-proof native fruit tree that the landscaping industry pretends does not exist. Diospyros virginiana grows wild across the eastern half of the United States, from Connecticut to Florida to Kansas. It handles temperatures down to -25 Fahrenheit. It tolerates clay soil, sandy soil, wet feet, and drought. It has no significant pest or disease problems in its native range. A mature tree produces 90 to 100 pounds of fruit per year and asks almost nothing in return. The fruit itself is the catch, and also the advantage. An unripe American persimmon is astringent enough to make your entire mouth pucker for an hour. But a fully ripe one, soft and almost translucent, tastes like a date crossed with apricot custard. That astringency is the tree's built-in pest management. Deer browse the leaves, but the fruit mostly falls and ferments before anything else gets to it. Most nurseries push Asian persimmons because they ship better and look prettier in a catalog. The American species is tougher, more cold-hardy, and completely self-sufficient once established. If you want a fruit tree you can genuinely neglect, this is the gold standard. Number 4. Fig, the Mediterranean survivor that thrives on neglect. Figs have been cultivated for at least 11,000 years, making them one of the oldest domesticated crops on Earth. They predate wheat, they predate barley. And unlike those annual grains, a fig tree does not care if you forget about it for a month. Once established, figs are genuinely drought-tolerant. They need zero pruning to produce fruit. In warm climates, many varieties fruit twice per year, a spring greba crop, and a heavier main crop in late summer. A mature fig tree produces 50 to 100 pounds of fruit annually. The trees root aggressively and can grow in cracked concrete, rocky hillsides, and compacted urban soil that would kill most fruit trees on contact. Figs are self-pollinating, so you only need one tree. They root from cuttings so easily that a single tree can become 10 in a season. In zones 7 and below, you grow them in containers or protect them over winter. In zones 8 through 11, you plant them and walk away. The biggest mistake people make with figs is overwatering and over-fertilizing. The tree that has survived since the Neolithic does not need your help. It needs you to leave it alone. Number 5. Pawpaw, the largest edible fruit native to North America, and almost nobody has tasted one. Asimina triloba grows wild in 26 states. The fruit weighs 6 to 12 ounces, has a creamy custard texture, and tastes like a cross between banana and mango. That is not an exaggeration. The first European explorers who encountered pawpaws thought they had found a tropical fruit growing in temperate forests. Indigenous peoples across the eastern woodlands cultivated pawpaw groves for centuries before contact. George Washington ate them for dessert. Lewis and Clark survived on them when their provisions ran low. Then the fruit disappeared from American culture entirely because it bruises within 2 days of harvest and cannot be shipped. That single logistical problem erased a native fruit tree from the national memory. Pawpaws need almost no pest management. The leaves contain acetogenins, natural compounds that are toxic to most insects. Dear, leave them alone. You need 2 genetically distinct trees for pollination, and they prefer partial shade when young. But once established, a pawpaw grove is essentially a self-maintaining patch of tropical flavored fruit in a temperate climate. The trees live 40 to 60 years and start bearing in 3 to 5. Number 6. Pecan, the 300-year investment that pays dividends in fat and protein. If you live anywhere in zones 6 through 9, a pecan tree is one of the most valuable things you can put in the ground. A mature tree produces 70 to 150 pounds of nuts per year. Pecans are over 70% fat by weight, mostly monounsaturated, the same heart-healthy fat found in olive oil. They store for months in the shell and over a year in the freezer. A single large pecan tree, the kind with a 60-foot canopy, can produce for 2 to 3 centuries. There are pecan trees in the southern United States still bearing nuts that were seedlings when Thomas Jefferson was alive. The catch is patience. Grafted varieties start producing in 6 to 10 years, but they do not hit full stride until year 15 or 20. Seedling trees take even longer. Most people want results next season, which is exactly why most people do not plant pecans. But if you are thinking in decades rather than months, this tree is an absurd value proposition. 150 pounds of high-calorie nuts every year from a tree that needs no irrigation in most of its range and no spraying outside of commercial operations. The pecan rewards the long view like almost nothing else in agriculture. Number 7. Hazelnut, the nut tree for people who do not want to wait a decade. Most nut trees test your patience. Hazelnuts do not. A grafted hazelnut can start producing in 3 to 5 years, and a mature bush yields around 25 pounds of nuts annually. That is not pecan-level volume, but it arrives a full decade sooner. Hazelnuts grow as large shrubs or small trees, fitting easily into suburban yards and hedgerows where a full-size nut tree would overwhelm the space. They are hardy from zones 4 through 9, handle partial shade, and tolerate a range of soil types. The American hazelnut, Coryllis americana, is essentially maintenance-free once established. European varieties and hybrids produce larger nuts, but may need more attention. Here is what makes hazelnuts uniquely practical. They grow on the margins. Plant them as a hedge along your property line, and you get a windbreak, a privacy screen, wildlife habitat, and 25 pounds of calorie-dense nuts every fall from the same planting. The nuts store easily, roast beautifully, and grind into a flour that works as a wheat substitute. You need at least 2 varieties for cross-pollination. Beyond that, the hazelnut asks very little. It is the permaculture multitasker that fills every gap in a food forest without demanding a gap in your schedule. 7 trees. That is all it takes to build a food-producing landscape that outlasts you. Every one of these species has been feeding people for centuries with minimal human intervention. The annual garden has its place, but the real foundation of food security is perennial. It is the stuff that produces while you sleep, while you travel, while you skip a season because life got complicated. If you are serious about growing food long-term, plant at least one of these this year. Start with whatever matches your climate and your patience level. Mulberries for fast fruit, chestnuts for calories, pecans for the long game. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is this weekend. If this changed how you think about growing food, subscribe. More deep dives are coming.